JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com, code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com, code podcast.
My days working and taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out Care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought.
Care.com makes it super easy.
Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast. We are sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Your talking team along with Tim today is, of course, I'm Tim Fitzgerald. Zach Carlson and Cole Carmody is in the studio today, barely.
I've arisen from the dead.
Well, you didn't die. You just had a minor car accident. Oh, but you did have the sinus surgery. I'm doing finger quotes.
It's a nose job.
Yeah.
Rhinoplasty.
Your new nose looks great. It's a little button. It's so adorable. I don't know why you had the boob job, but that's a whole different topic. We're not going to get into that. We can talk about that on the overtime. This is the Questions Podcast, the one in which you ask your questions at Wabash Station if you are a subscriber, and then we answer for all to hear on this beautiful, beautiful thing called a podcast. And I said it, but we're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop in. I saw they had Mike dancing on social media, which was great. It was a great move because seeing Mike do the dancing made me want to drink so much that I'd go blind, but that's a whole other story. But I probably should have gone to the fridge and to get me through what I saw. I don't even know what the step he was doing. It was, their social media team's awesome. Whoever's doing it is kicking ass, like their prices, like their service, and like their selection. Head into the fridge and go get you some. There we go. That was just so awful. It was awful.
They pay us for that.
They pay good money for that. Okay, Cole's going to be asking the questions today. I will attempt to answer. My caffeine isn't fully through my brain system yet, or I've got too much.
So about 15 minutes in is when this podcast is going to get really good.
Right. About 15 minutes in and like 3 questions. I will spend the next 15 minutes on a question, but you won't even finish reading it before I start just talking. But you better go now before I lose control.
First question comes from Wyatt Bowlinger, 15. Outside of Cooper Beebe and Daniel Green, what K-State player has the highest chance to be a draft pick next spring?
Kobe Savage. If he's healthy, he's a guy. He fits the mold of the other guys that have come out of K-State to get into the league. Going to be a nickel kind of guy, hard hitter.
I think the obvious answer is Ben Sinnott.
Yeah, if he wants to come out, I think he's an NFL tight end. He kind of fits the mold now.
Can I take a generic other offensive lineman other than Cooper Beebe? Can I take 1 out of 4?
So, KT.
It's probably my
Christian
actual
Duffy.
pick, but
I was about to mention KT.
Yeah.
I think coming back for him was really important because he showed such drastic improvement. Now, if he can build on that, I think he has an opportunity to be really dominant at this level at left tackle. If he's more consistent, and that might translate to right tackle or interior lineman at the NFL.
He's athletic enough to play the interior line for sure at the next level.
Yeah.
And he's done that a little bit at K-State too. So, yeah, I mean, I think you might have talked me into that, Zach. Like
I don't think that Cooper Beebe is the only NFL quality offensive lineman. Maybe not at the moment, but I don't think that. I think NFL teams, if they're looking at Cooper Beebe and they're looking at the whole of the offensive line, I think that an NFL scout can look, at the system and say, you know what, that guy's actually pretty good too, and he could make an impact on our team.
If Beebe is a first-round draft pick, like I think a lot of people think he will be, and let's be honest here, on the offensive line, it's really hard for your value to go down coming back for another year in school. Like, say, if you were a quarterback who decided to come back and you didn't have as good of a year or you got hurt, that happens a lot more often than offensive linemen. Offensive linemen, it's harder for them to get hurt unless it's just a catastrophic knee injury, like we've seen with Taylor Poitier. But
I don't think Taylor would like you saying it's hard to get hurt.
But he's like the only one really that we've seen with situations like that recently. So I don't think Beebe's value is going to go down, if he doesn't have as good of a year as he did last year.
I agree. I'm intrigued by Taylor though. He's had 2 knee injuries, and now when you have a reconstructive knee injury, in many cases, it improves your knees. They know exactly why it was failing, and they correct that. Back in the day, they would just go fix what was injured, but now they understand exactly what's going wrong, and we now see, I've mentioned before, soccer players having preemptive surgery to strengthen their knees. I mean, it's entirely possible he comes back better, and if he can show I've got 2 better knees. I'm proved. He's a really good lineman. He was. So there's a possibility he might be a guy. But someone's going to pop up. I mean, someone's going to going into last year, I thought Sammy Wheeler would have a breakout season because I sensed that they were going to move to the tight end more. Well, I had the right spot. I just picked the wrong guy because Sinnott and Howard had such a good connection. But there's going to be someone like that. Maybe it'll be DJ Giddens, someone you're just not thinking of that's going to have a breakout year.
I think Trayshawn Ward's on that list too.
Yeah.
We'll no doubt.
Yep.
Next question comes from El Camino Cat. Which is more likely this season? A, K-State averages over 200 yards rushing per game, or B, K-State averages over 250 yards passing per game? I
think the passing. I do. I mean, I just think this is going to be more of a passing game.
Yeah.
I could be convinced otherwise. Let's put it that way.
Well, I just look at the 5 returning offensive linemen, and I think early on in the season they're probably going to lean more on those guys as opposed to trying to air it out with really a new cast of receivers, right? Like R.J. Garcia didn't play that much last year. Keegan Johnson, obviously new to the system. You get Phillip Brooks back, but he was always that third option, really. So, I mean, I could kind of see it, 6 games, the first 6 games, 200 yards rushing, the next 6 games, 250 yards passing, if that makes sense. I think it'll be fairly even. If you were to ask me, are there more games where K-State rushes for over 200 yards or more games where K-State throws for over 250 yards? I would probably take the rushing.
I think right now rushing is so, I guess the personnel breakdown right now, I don't really know how they're going to use Giddens or Ward, and what the balance is going to be. But, there's really only 2 guys right now. Somebody's got to have a 100-yard game, and then the other guy's got to put in a bunch of other work, and then maybe you have Will Howard run for, 50 yards maybe per game. That's a lot of yards for a quarterback to run. 200 yards, at least how I see it right now, is a huge number. So I think that in the sense of this question, I think it's more likely that K-State averages over 250 passing yards a game. But even then, I think that's a big number too. So I don't really know. I'm being non-committal here, but I'd probably take passing over the rushing number just because of the breakdown of personnel right now and just doing the math and knowing that somebody's got to run for 100 yards pretty much every game.
What if we change this question to say 180 yards rushing per game and 230 yards passing per game? Does that change your opinion at all?
No, because it makes the passing even easier to get to. Mm-hmm. And 180 yards, I think
we think that though, but how many times did K-State actually throw for over 250 yards last season? We think that 250 yards is attainable, 230 yards is attainable. I'm going to go back here and look in a second, but I don't.
How many
I don't
games
think that happened that often.
How many games did K-State have 450 yards of total offense?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point here is there's a balance, but
And with the new rules, first down rules, there'll be fewer plays. So, not sure.
Like I'm going to use this game as an example. So K-State, Texas Tech. I feel like it was a pretty even game, right? Like, I specifically remember Adrian Martinez making a few big plays. K-State ran the ball for 343 yards and threw it for 116 in that game, and they scored 37 points. Another game.
What was the biggest passing yards game?
Off the top of my head, what do we think? Oklahoma State probably. So let's go look at that game. I know Will Howard threw for over 300 yards that game. Now that's 48-0, right? So it's a little bit different. But they ran the ball for 199 yards and threw for 296 yards that game. So, we think about how great Will Howard played in that game. That's
pretty
45 more yards than what this question is asking. Have I convinced you otherwise, Zach?
No, because that game was such a blowout that I don't think it stacks up.
They started running.
How about Baylor, 31-3? Any guesses for that?
I have no idea.
Probably more passing. A lot of passing touchdowns.
221 passing yards and 184 rushing yards. So that's about as 50-50, like this question proportionally, right? So
I think it's closer to that.
Yes, I agree.
What this question asks.
I agree. Yeah. But even then, if we were to drop it down from the 20, it wouldn't have gotten to the 230, and it went past the.
Yeah. I feel like the actual answer here is neither. They'll be under both.
Yeah.
On average.
And I also think this talks about Deuce Vaughn and comparing it to Trayshawn Ward. Like, if you didn't get 100 yards from Deuce Vaughn last year, you weren't getting to that 150-yard threshold.
Right.
Unless the West Virginia game, take that out of the mix. But you don't have to get 100 yards from DJ Giddens because you can get 100 yards from Trayshawn Ward. And if you get 75 from each guy, that's still a pretty productive game, right?
And you still need 50 from somebody else to get
to
just get to the average of 200.
Yeah.
Because you're certainly going to have less. To average 200, you're going to have to do 250, 300 maybe a couple games. I think that 250 is a lot more attainable from a passing yard standpoint. And even then, you're going to have so many passing plays to get to that point.
Yep. It just is all going to depend upon how Colin Klein decides to call a game, really. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So, good question. Next question comes from Imarika. Most difficult non-Texas when he says UT, I'm going to say Texas because I don't like it either. But most difficult non-Texas game on the football schedule this season and why?
At Texas Tech.
Are you convinced of that still?
Mm-hmm.
See, I was fully on board with that too, but
my 24/7 ballot Big 12 game of the year is K-State at Texas. Seems like a game I should probably cover.
Well,
we'll talk about the next one.
We'll talk about what you're doing elsewhere in the next question.
But I think K-State going to Tech is going to be a bloodbath.
You don't think TCU here has the?
You think it's going to be a bloodbath?
Yeah, I think.
You think K-State's going to lose, or you think it's just going to be a battle?
Battle.
Okay.
Just go at it. I think K-State's going to beat TCU by 2 touchdowns in Manhattan. I don't mean to be the guy that judges TCU like everyone always judged K-State. Well, Michael Bishop isn't there. El Roberson isn't there. Well, Chad May isn't there. Jake Waters isn't there. Hey, Colin Klein isn't there. And that's how it's always worked. So you guys are going to suck now. I don't want to be that guy, but Max Duggan was the heart and soul of the team. Setting aside his numbers, his warrior mentality translated to everyone. He single-handedly kept TCU in the Big 12 championship. Mm-hmm. Single-handedly put the entire football team on his back and carried them to the edge of victory. Chad Morris, is that his name? Chad?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Chad Morris is
he's the coach.
Chad, what? Oh, my God. See, I can't think of his name. He was supposed to be the starter last year.
Yeah.
And then now he's not going to get it done. I mean, they're good. You can't replace that kind of leadership that he had.
Chandler Morris.
I don't even remember that. It's like Chandler Bing. Is this who that is? He's kind of the Chandler Bing of quarterbacks. Unremarkable and makes you laugh sometimes. I don't know. People are so optimistic. I saw one list of Big 12 quarterbacks where they put this guy ahead of Will Howard. Now I'm just worked up over it every time I think of him, even if I can't remember his name.
You know they're going to be using temporary locker rooms at Tech. We're not going to be in the dark media room.
What? What? What's going on at Tech?
I think they're reconstructing all the locker rooms or something.
Because they're renovating the
little closet that Craig James's son was put in.
Right.
That we use every 2 years for our post-game press
Craig
conference.
James Memorial Closet.
Yes. Yeah. That is no more. Oh. We will be somewhere else.
How dare them just throw away tradition?
I think they're actually moving the visiting locker rooms to the north side of the stadium, I think.
Great. He just used directions on me, and I have no idea what he meant.
And then Tech will take, I think where the current visiting locker room is, I think that there's some sort of thing they're doing, and I think that might be where the new locker room will be.
With TCU, Fitz, I want to touch on something you said. I feel like that might be the toughest game in Manhattan. I know that's not the question, but I feel like that might be the best game that takes place in Manhattan. But I also get and I hate to bring this up because I know it's a soft spot, but I really do get Bruce Weber vibes from Sonny Dykes as far as winning with other people's players. Now, I'm not saying he can't do it on his own, but you mentioned Max Duggan. People forget that he couldn't even play. There was questions if he could even play because of a heart ailment that he had. He might not ever be able to play football again. And then he loses the job to Chandler Morris. And even with all that, he stays, wins the job, and then ultimately becomes a Heisman finalist. You don't just replace that.
No.
Especially with the guy that he beat out.
No, I agree.
So, yeah, I think if folks listening to this might think TCU might be the most tough game. But, yeah, I don't really know. I don't have a specific answer. I think Oklahoma State's going to be a lot harder than people think just because it's a Friday night game. It's the beginning part of the season, and K-State never plays good down there. So that might be a tough game. I don't know if that's the toughest, but
I think it's a sneaky game to look at, and I think K-State wins this game. Don't get me wrong. But I think at some point in the Missouri game, they will make sure they're trying to injure as many guys as possible because they're going to get their ass kicked by K-State. And they are in full denial of what happened last year. Oh, it was the weather. Mm-hmm. It was just the weather. Yeah, okay. I think K-State wins that game by multiple touchdowns, but I think it's going to get ugly.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say Troy. I think Troy is going to be the most difficult game, especially when you look at it all when the season's all said and done. I think that that might be the closest non-con game, but also just with what happened with Tulane last year, and I would argue that Troy is a better football team coming in than what Tulane was. Not what Tulane became. Tulane was a great football team last year. We didn't know that when they came to Manhattan and played K-State and won. We know right now that Troy is a good football team and probably the best non-con game of the season for sure.
I think that's good for K-State, though.
I think it's good for K-State, yes. But if you told me today, the spread is K-State minus 9.5 or whatever, give me Troy. Mm-hmm. Give me Troy. Give me the points.
I also think if that's the most tough game that K-State plays all year, that's not Texas, they're going to be pretty damn good.
I also agree with that. If Troy,
if that's the toughest game,
Troy is the toughest non-Texas game and K-State can win it, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
But just based on what happened last season with Tulane, Troy, you can't ignore Troy.
No.
You got to take it seriously.
Yep. Agreed. Last question of the first half comes from Kat in Colo. As we referenced earlier, the opening game in basketball is in Vegas against Bronny James and USC. Woo! It's a big deal on a big stage, the kind of game that Blue Bloods usually get. Why do you think K-State was chosen?
It's the O.J. Mayo, Michael Beasley, 2008 NCAA tournament first round in Omaha Memorial Classic.
If K-State had a big-time freshman.
That was a long title for that.
That'd be pretty cool.
Was I wrong?
No, look, I mean, it's clear why K-State was picked because it was an exciting brand of basketball. The TV ratings were obvious, and there's a head coach at Kansas State that probably said, hell yeah, we'll go there and play, which is such a different approach than anyone's had at Kansas State in basketball. I mean, for a very long time. hell yeah, we'll go there and play. Actually, coach probably says, heck yes, we'll go there and play. But I think that's the big reason. And it might even be that it was floating around circles that they were looking for an opponent in case they said, we want it. Let's do it. So I'm excited about it. As we alluded to earlier, I won't be covering the Texas football game. These two guys will be, and I will be in Vegas for. I'll be there for 9 nights, Zach. I'm going to just get out there, make sure that everything is good. I'm going to be checking on the venue on a daily basis, make sure nothing's wrong with it. They're probably around midnight or 3 a.m. somewhere, but I'll check on the venue daily, and then I probably won't be able to come home until the next week. In the middle of it. But I got to get home for the next game for football.
You think we could score an interview with LeBron?
I'm going to walk up to LeBron and then probably get tackled by a security.
I just want to know, LeBron, we need an answer from LeBron about the 2010 Pinstripe Bowl and his tweet about K-State getting absolutely hosed by the refs.
Right.
We need a response from that 13 years later about the salute.
Now, as someone, I don't know if you guys know this about me, as someone who tweets a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll get into that later. I'm just an innocent victim in all this. You asked me about some great tweet I had 13 years ago. I'm going to look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? But of course, LeBron probably has less going on in his life than me. So he'll probably remember that because I'm a very busy person with my schedule. You do know who else is on USC's roster, right?
A guy named Troy.
No, not a guy.
There's a whole Troy theme to this entire podcast, apparently.
So there's a man by the name of DJ Rodman on the team.
Oh, that's right.
Who
isn't there another guy too?
Son of
this is
Dennis Rodman.
This is and it's in Vegas.
Yeah, Isaiah Collier was another top player who
USC's got. I don't know if they'll be good. I don't know if they'll win the game, but they're going to be a good team by the end of the year.
They went out and recruited guys that will feel like they're putting on a show every night. Maybe that's what it takes to get a crowd in LA. Get a little Hollywood to it. A couple former NBA names on the roster. Maybe people will care about USC athletics for a brief shining moment.
Well, in fairness, DJ Rodman, he averaged 9 points a game at Washington State last year, so I don't think he's that good. But still, it's interesting.
It is.
Do you think Dennis will be sitting there next to LeBron?
I'm actually more interested in talking to Dennis Rodman than LeBron.
Well, it's in Vegas, so he'll be there.
I might have to take some acid before I talk to him to understand what he's talking about. I don't know. I'd like to ask him about Larry Bird. This whole thing he stepped in, this one. Anyhow, that's it for the first half. We'll be back with more of your questions from Wabash Station. I promise that there's more topics that will allow me to talk about myself. And that's awesome. That's okay. I've just got to always talk about myself.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, and Cole Carmody is your team of talking today. Well, I kind of like that. It's going to be it. Stop into the fridge whenever you're in Manhattan. Great prices, great people, and great selection. They have about anything you would want. Except one thing they don't have is your questions from Wabash Station. Cole has those, and he's going to start reading them again.
First question of the second half comes from Eric Schneid. What are the odds that the Josh Eilert hire at West Virginia has a similar effect as K-State retaining Frank after Hugs left?
It's a great comparison. Well, first of all, I'm just struck by when Huggins leaves. He leaves with wreckage behind him, and an assistant coach gets a career break. Andy Kennedy at Cincinnati, Frank Martin at Kansas State, and now Josh Eilert. And as unproven as Frank was, at least he was associate head coach. Josh Eilert has been a staff member and only briefly a coaching staff member. But I think it's clear he was hired because he's kind of a glue guy that can keep things together, that while his emphasis hasn't been his X's and O's. I'm sure Hug signed off on the fact that they are good. He is good in that, but he can run the program efficiently. I mean, I imagine he'll have Ron Everhart still there, who's a great X's and O's coach. So it's kind of a team effort. I'm just thrilled for Josh. It's an incredible break. And even if he doesn't get the West Virginia job, and guys, let me be clear, I think they have no intention of hiring him, no matter what happens this year. Short of going to the Sweet 16 or something, I don't think they intend on promoting Josh Eilert. But what he does this year will absolutely get him another coaching gig. Now, it might be, at a American Conference program or something like that, but I think this sets him up for a whole new career than what he had 6 months ago.
He's young, too.
It's crazy because I think he's been an assistant coach. I think last year was his first year as a full-on assistant coach.
He was an interim assistant coach for a while. But
I think that was just for like a recruiting title, probably.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was. But he's had a collection of titles, which indicates to me that they kept finding ways to keep him because he was so valuable. Here's a new title with pay. Here's a new title. That's just my guess. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone there kind of recognized how important he was to the entire program. And as they progressed through the search process, they realized they were hearing from a lot of prominent names on their list that I would love to coach there, but not right now. I can't do it right now. I'm just not going to do that. So I hope he can make the most of this opportunity. And he only loses a player or two to Kansas State. That's all. That's just it.
I think the best players are staying at West Virginia.
I think they want to.
Like Raekwon Battle. I mean,
well, let's keep
that in mind too. Like that's probably their biggest win in the portal, and he decided not even to enter the portal. They get the kid from Arizona who entered the portal and then decided he wanted to come back. Edwards from Syracuse, another big time recruit that they won in the portal, decided not to re-enter the portal and stay there. So like the guys that they got in the portal this offseason, for the most part, the best ones are staying.
Well, let's also be clear that a lot of these guys, including Raekwon Battle, didn't necessarily pick West Virginia or Bob Huggins. They picked the NIL money.
True.
That's just something that's layered in there now, that when players are picking the NIL money, that's still there for them. Mm-hmm. It didn't leave with Bob Huggins, I'm positive. If it had, they'd lose their entire roster. And it's just the way the game's played now. You literally you can go out and buy players. But I've said it before, as soon as someone says, I'm looking for NIL money, Tang's like, okay, have fun. You're not bought into a program. You just want the money. And I agree with him wholeheartedly on that, particularly with basketball.
The sad part about that is, though, Fitz, like if you're Josh Eilert and if you agree with that philosophy, you're not at a point now where you're like, oh, see ya. Like, I don't want you on the team.
No,
you have to just keep him, right? So
it can make for a sloppy locker room for a first-year coach, too.
Yeah, I hope it works out for him, too. Next question from Contra Cat. He says, we have had multiple calls for adding sports or, quote-unquote, relocating our sports interests. Practically, how much money would it take for Gene Taylor to pull the trigger on a change or addition? I was surprised and may not understand the balance sheet I have seen, but it seems we have multiple years' revenue in hand.
Well, again, a lot of that revenue is intended for coaches' salaries. I mean, everyone clamors to make sure you pay the coaches. It's got to come from somewhere. You can't just say, well, we have the money this year. You've got to make sure it's on hand for the future. And that's the big question. I mean, let's say they did a radical approach. Let's say they just said, let's sit down and nothing is sacred. Nothing is sacred. If someone wants to talk about dropping football, we'll at least discuss it. That's a good creative environment. People don't understand that. Okay, that's a stupid idea, but we're going to talk about it. Why do you want that? If they sit down and do that, they're going to realize that it's going to be impossible for Kansas State to ever be competitive at the highest levels in baseball. You just can't get baseball pitching arms as far north on a consistent basis. You can hit years, but the years of programs like Nebraska and Creighton being great are done. It's just all moved to the south. You just look at what happened in the tournament. It's just such a southern advantage now with warm weather and pitchers wanted to protect their arms. So if you look at that and you say, okay, what sport's bringing us the least amount of return, even though it's the cheapest sport, and that's probably women's tennis. I mean, it's a filler. I mean, I hate to say that, but it just is a sports filler.
Do people go to the matches?
Well, I'm sure some tennis people do, but they build a small stadium, which is,
That's
bleachers. But
the stadium's tough.
And come back to this, it's just not a sport in which local athletes are able to play at this level. I mean, there might be some on occasion. So let's say they decide those sports don't work anymore. What do we take? Well, I think the obvious answer is softball. But they got pitchers. Softball pitching is completely different.
Yeah.
Don't even get at me about that. You can be good in softball this far north. And Kansas high school athletics has a lot of great softball players that are going either to KU or Wichita State or out of state. And, of course, wrestling, which is a dominant sport in high school here in Kansas. I mean, it's a traditional – I don't want to just pigeonhole it as rural, but a lot of these kids out there, wrestling's their sport, and it goes with football really well. And if you do that, I mean, you bring in the fences at Toynton, and that's a whole nother factor. They paid for a baseball stadium, not a softball stadium. And you build a wrestling facility out left field attached to the Olympic Training Center. So, I mean, it's all there, and that's still a lot of money. Even that simple transition is a lot of money. And that's just not something Gene Taylor is going to do. Thank you, Daphne. Gene Taylor is going to do in this volatile environment right now. Until I can't see it happening until maybe the next round of contract negotiations. And honestly, I don't know Gene will still be the boss then. He might have retired since then. And, the next round comes around and the Big 12 is going to be fine. It's going to clearly be the third media rights conference. And maybe the gap closes with basketball if that's the right play. But maybe then is when they do something. But, man, you've got so much momentum now. If you drop a sport, you're going to have hell to pay from some people. I mean, there was hell to pay for John Curry for dropping equestrian. And I think we all understand that the equestrian was added because there's a lot of horse families in the state. I remember specifically them saying this gives us a new avenue of revenue for donors that these people would be donating in. And it just didn't come up that way. It didn't work that way at all. People just wanted to donate tack or horses or, something that was old school. We'll donate you stuff instead of just cash. And that just didn't work.
If you don't want to drop tennis, you need to drop rowing. That would be the next one.
But until the NCAA rules change, until Title IX changes, K-State has absolutely set up their athletic department and the sports they participate in 100% efficiently.
No, I agree.
I mean, there is no other mathematical way with conference sports, the minimum number of sports at 16. There are 6 sports that K-State participates in and sponsors that are running. Indoor, outdoor, cross country.
Now, I've mentioned this before.
Men's and women's.
Yeah, it's crazy. 6 out of 14.
16.
Really? But I'm not sure what the scholarship setup is, but I think beach volleyball is the same way. Beach volleyball, you can't play that. I mean, a lot of schools are playing that around the country. I mean, you can play it indoors. It's a mess, but you have big, what are those giant cars that dirt shows where they, I don't even
Monster trucks?
Monster
Is that
trucks.
what you're trying to say?
They have that indoors. You could have, I'm sorry, again, the caffeine hasn't been properly calculated today.
The dirt and the cars.
And he got monster trucks out of that. Zach has been with me a long time. When he starts deciphering that crap, even Becky would have gone, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, they do monster trucks inside. You can do, beach volleyball in contained areas inside. But I mean, if that adds you some scholarships and adds you a sport, go for it. Because I've said over and over, I think if there's a non-traditional, I don't mean that, a non-revenue producing sport like men's basketball or football that K-State could find a way to be competitive in, it's volleyball, because you can get the players here. And now you have a facility that is hard to match around the country. I don't know enough about. Really,
you could probably drop tennis and add beach volleyball.
Right.
If there's one sport that, if
just
we're
put it right there.
If we're going to talk about reallocating, you have basically an entire roster that you could use. I don't know what the setup is for teams that play beach volleyball and how many athletes play both. But you have the same player pool there, and you get to eliminate 6 or 8, athletes that you don't have to pay scholarships for, and it balances out, and it adds. Well, it doesn't get rid of the scholarships; it reallocates them to the volleyball side. But it's you can have volleyball athletes that are on beach volleyball scholarships, and you can kind of combine there. I think I'm not a compliance expert, but
surely
that's probably the next way to go. But ultimately, if you want more sports, it's going to take more people, more donors than just the Ices and the Shamrocks.
Shamrocks.
I like how that's their name now. It's just the Shamrocks. But if you want other sports, it's probably going to take $10 million more a year to add 2 sports, I think. And I don't even think that those sports could be wrestling or softball.
No, they could.
Even though that would be great, and it would be such a fit for the region, the state, and how high schools play those sports, and how those athletes have to basically go elsewhere. They don't go to K-State. Those would be the sports that I'd love to see added, but I don't think you're going to drop any sports at this point. K-State is just so, I don't want to call it bare bones, but that's probably the best word for it, is they strategically play the sports they play.
They're fiscally very cautious. Very. And I appreciate that, because these are volatile times.
But it's going to take someone with a lot of money and a very specific interest in seeing K-State compete and compete well at an Olympic sport. And NIL's kind of changed that for Olympic sports, because when you look at gymnastics right now, and I'll say this all the time, OU, whether they are good in the SEC or not at football or basketball, they picked the right conference for softball. They picked the right conference for gymnastics.
Right, they did.
Because you look at gymnastics now, all of these former Olympians that were at the Tokyo Olympics, they're playing in college now because they can take NIL money. When you went to the Olympics, you were getting your $50,000, $100,000 a year, or, maybe not even that, maybe for a whole Olympic cycle of brand deals just to be an Olympian and compete at the Olympic level and hopefully win medals and take the money that way. But now with NIL, you're seeing these Olympians go to college and compete at the college level. I don't think college gymnastics has ever been at this level ever. So I think that if K-State was going to add sports, it would take somebody that wants to compete at a certain Olympic sport and do it well.
Yeah.
The natatorium closed. It'd be great if K-State could build a new natatorium, probably up by the rec. But why not build it properly? Build a 50-meter pool inside of it. Build, create a swim team. If you have the facility for a swim team or a dive team, it's basically the same as running a tennis team. Mm-hmm. Sure, you'll pay money, kind of like what they do with Colbert for the upkeep of the facilities. But at a certain point, if you have the facilities, running the team is secondhand. That's just the second part of it. It's you don't need any additional revenue per year.
Let's bring this full circle. Zach pointed out something, and, I know the reflex is drop rowing, but he's exactly right. You have to have rowing as a counterbalance to your football scholarships for Title IX. So that's not happening. Finally, I'll close it with this. I plan on winning the lottery. I don't know if you know about that. That's my retirement plan.
There's a couple of them right now.
I know. Also, after this recording, I'll be heading out to buy some lottery tickets because that money's mine. Well, Becky can have some too. But anyhow, if I do win the lottery, first of all, it's been great knowing everyone. Mm-hmm. And I will be the NIL guy for volleyball. We are going to play at the national level in volleyball. And I will also say we need to add, here's $10 million for softball. We need to get this going. And that is a sport. I look at Oklahoma and see what they've done with softball. And I admire it and I envy it because K-State could do that. They're not good because they're Oklahoma. They're good because they've made a commitment to being good in that sport. And I admire that. They have invested and gone out and recruited, and they've got to be leveraging NIL down there too to get so many players. But they've done it right. They're the UCLA, the men's basketball, but the softball version of it is Oklahoma softball. It's incredible what they're doing. And there's no reason K-State couldn't be competing at a really high level in that sport.
Very good conversation. Next question comes from Claws Out, Balls Out. It's a little bit more simple. Who has a better upcoming season? He wants us to look into our crystal ball.
Okay, I've got one.
Shake it up. Or is that the 8 ball?
That's the 8 ball.
Okay. Well,
that's also my crystal ball.
It works the same thing.
You don't shake a crystal ball.
Men's or women's basketball?
Oh, you don't, do you? Should we tell him?
Snow globe.
It's not like snow globe?
It's not like snow globe.
Okay, go ahead.
Men's or women's basketball, better season? Go.
Oh, that is a good question.
But see, what do we define as better season?
I want it to be women's basketball.
I think men go further in the NCAA tournament, but the women have a better regular season because it's so hard to win in the women's basketball NCAA tournament.
That's a good I'll buy all that. I mean, they're the top and the bottom, or heck, the top and the upper crust of women's basketball. We saw it close up a little bit this year. We saw some, but it's quite common to have 1 or 2 seeds fill the entire Final Four, and that's rare for men's basketball. So,
but you did have Virginia Tech and LSU. Granted, it's Kim Mulkey, but it was still LSU.
I'm buying that. I think women will have a better regular season. They might even win the Big 12. I don't know, but doing damage in the postseason, I think Jerome Tang is building his team for that purpose.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything against the women's team and Jeff Mittie. I think they're going to be really good. They're probably going to be more consistent than the men. That's the one thing about the women's team these past few years. When they've been good, it's they've beaten the teams that they should have beat. And normally, take the Iowa game out last year, normally they've lost to the teams that they probably should lose to. But I could see them, there's going to be more games they should win this year than games that there have been in the past. So I think the women can get a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. And if they get a 3 seed, that means they get to host they get to host the first 2 rounds. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
So
if you play in the second round.
Yeah.
As long as Cirque du Soleil isn't in town, it happens.
Are they coming?
I don't know.
Can they come? I love them so much. I can do everything a Cirque show can do, just not sober or on purpose. I probably have done all that
so you
stuff.
Can climb up the little wall and then
not realize I'm doing it because I'm inebriated, and then tumble and spin and twist and land in a small pool, but all by accident.
So that has to do with women's basketball.
Yes.
Okay.
I think
don't know.
I think Yogi Lee can have a breakout superstar type of season like Caitlin Clark did.
It's just different though. She plays the post. It's not as flashy.
Yeah, but if she's going to score 40 points a game,
if she's healthy.
Yeah.
If
she's healthy.
Well, you combine a 75% Yoki Lee with a 100% Gabby Gregory, and that is 75% more than what they got last year.
Well, and they've got some great transfers, too.
I don't think the math there.
But the situation is here, they went run and gun without Yoki, and Yoki's not running and gunning. She's got to play a half-court game. Have fun, Coach Mitty, figuring that one out.
It's different, yeah. Mm-hmm. It'll be different, for sure.
But if she's healthy. I'm told was a really bad knee injury.
On the men's side, there was a cryptic tweet by Jerome Tang. Just breaking news here on the podcast. Are you guys familiar with Larry Harrison?
No.
I believe he's the former associate head coach at West Virginia, because there's nothing in his Twitter bio at the moment. Tweeted a picture of a Kansas State target. That's his first tweet since February 20th. He just tweeted a picture out of one of his former players, and Jerome Tang retweeted it.
Interesting.
Not Joe Toussaint, but the other one, Muhammad. Is that his name? No. What's his name? The other guy.
Well, that guy.
We'll figure it out before this goes live.
Muhammad Wegu.
Oh, I love Wagyu beef.
Yeah. Tweeted a picture of him, and Jerome Tang retweeted it. He's supposed to be on a visit right now.
Caffeine hit.
There you go.
That's interesting.
It's very strange. Just a picture of him like flexing, and Jerome Tang retweeted it.
Okay.
All right. Last question of the podcast. It's the most important question we've ever had on this show.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
It's from TDE67.
Oh, yes.
It's addressed to Fitz.
Oh, boy.
Is this the current Twitter feud involving the KU Stadium funding your favorite Twitter feud to date?
Well, it's not a feud from my point of view. It's a feud from their point of view. But I'm just asking questions here. And it's funny, Troy Coverdale from K-Man is now kind of taking the mantle from me. And he had someone actually tweet at him and say, why is this so hard to understand? It's two projects. There's the Gateway and the football stadium. And I'm like, that is the entire point I've been attempting to make. I'm glad you've come full circle to realize that this is two projects. Then why the hell does it have one budget? It's all one pool of money, and if you throw taxpayer money in there, you're using it for the stadium. You can account for it however you want. But if I give Cole $20 and I tell him, don't spend this on alcohol, young man, and he takes a 20 out of his wallet, not the 20 I gave him, and spends it on alcohol, you know what he's got? He's got alcohol and still $20 in his pocket. But he didn't spend my 20. That's the kind of thinking that makes no sense. Just separate the budgets. And if it's not an athletic budget, why is the AD in charge of it? The AD is the front man for this project when, according to everyone, 90% of it's not football related. But yeah, it's been entertaining. Let's put it that way. And I keep coming back to the thought that the fact they don't know the difference between a bond and a grant. One you pay back and the other is a gift of taxpayer money. And they keep bringing it up. Well, you've had state bonds. Well, yes, they're totally different. Well, you had taxpayer money pay for KSU Stadium in the 1960s. Oh, now it's bad. Yeah, that's my point. There's no money for fixing buildings on our campuses in this state. Yes, that $85 million represents more than what I believe the Regents will allocate to all campuses for upkeep in terms of backlogged projects that need to be fixed. That $85 million, if applied properly to the KU campus, could do wonders and attract students. But no, they're going to build a hotel. And that's a whole other issue I have. I don't think you should use taxpayer money in any way to build a business that will compete with local businesses. Period. That's unfair. But overall, let me be clear, two thoughts. Love the project. The project is awesome. It's cool. It's a great idea. And for all the KU fans that you just don't want us to have a nice stadium. No, believe me, we all want you to fix that dump.
That's what got me is people are like, oh, K-State people are just scared about KU finally taking football seriously. And
you're not. You wouldn't need state money if you're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to point this out. Every time they try to fix football, all of a sudden there's an Allen Fieldhouse renovation, Allen Fieldhouse project. This is the problem you have. Your donors don't want to give to anything but basketball, and I understand why. I'd be the same way if there was a great disparity in the social wealth of donating to basketball as opposed to football. So,
how much more can you renovate Allen Fieldhouse than what it is right now?
And someone brought up a good point. Without cracking the walls, and if you crack the walls, you've got ADA issues that you can't resolve in that arena. So they can't build anything that is actually part of the building. You can build a breezeway, which they did a long time ago. You know, that breezeway that we used to have media was down the hall before they built the current media room. And there's like the football video room down in there. And yeah, you could have that, a breezeway, but yeah, they want to. They're kind of locked in. I mean, same with Bramlage. They can't crack the walls, or they have ADA issues, which they'll eventually have to face.
I mean, if Allen Fieldhouse is ever going to renovate itself, they need to do basically what we talk about with Bramlage. They need to gut the entire inside and build a modern arena based on it. You know, build suites, build whatever, and just use the shell of the building.
Someone tweeted at me, this football project could be $300 million. You expect us to do that without taxpayer money? Yeah, because you've neglected it for so long. That's why it's so expensive. If you had done it through the years, I mean, if K-State tried to do a press box, a football facility, Shamrock Zone, added stuff on the east side all at once, it would have been difficult to do. But no, they had projects and they took care of their stuff on their own through the years. Thank you. It was a belch for my dog.
I will say, though, after you've made your points and you've won, sometimes I wish Becky would take your phone.
Yeah. It frustrates me when people don't read what already been discussed, and then they're like, but you've got bonds. You're the 500th person I've had to explain this to. I'm beginning to wonder about what they're actually learning on that campus because people are not very bright in my mentions.
I have an update as we wrap up the podcast. Okay. The tweet that I mentioned earlier was by a coach who was fired by West Virginia. He was the one that was fired in the middle of the year this past season.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he's been with Huggins for forever. He was the one that was fired. This is his first tweet since February. Okay? I just checked. It was deleted. Okay? It was retweeted by Marco Bourne, Jerome Tang, and Dream Dowling.
And he deleted it.
And he just deleted it. He deleted the tweet. And this kid is Muhammad Wegu from West Virginia, is on a visit, reportedly, as we speak. And he also is from New York.
Yeah. So the New York connection's playing hard.
Just so everybody's aware, I'm not crazy. If you go look for this tweet, it's not going to be there. It was up, though.
My guess is he will be arriving in Manhattan to work on this staff, but for now he's not part of the staff and is involved in advising former players.
We'll find out.
I feel like the conspiracy theory. I'm connecting the dots. I got strings all over the studio. I got charts and stuff. That's it. Second half was a lot longer. Caffeine kicked in. Not my fault. I didn't buy that caffeine at Fridge Wholesale Liquor, but you can buy 5 Hour Energy and Red Bull there. It's incredible. It's the greatest place on earth.
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Power Cat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
It's the UEFA Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Europe's top club soccer tournament. Champions versus champions. The best teams facing off in the knockout rounds.
Magnificent!
And it all takes place
while you're filling out financial reports at work, in the middle of your day, in the middle of your week. So use that second screen. Call in sick. Do whatever you got to do to tune in Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Nobody watches the UEFA Champions League like us. Knockout rounds begin February 13th on CBS and stream live on Paramount+.